like them boys was firing, dog. Like the same way we kind of like give a lot of credit to offensive guys, the same amount of credit needs to be given to Mike McDonald for what he's doing defensively, from game planning, scheming, like
Hey,
the way
Jizzle, we don't
the
like
way.
that one. That don't sound right. Pause.
The, nah, I mean that's what a lot of people called me growing up. Hey, Jizzle. Uh,
I don't even
a
like
lot
that,
of
bro. I don't
different
like
things.
that for
So
you. Not
yeah.
in today's society.
Hey, actually, AJ, I was actually gonna say, AJ, you mentioned Mike McDonald. I mean, that's been kind of a hot name being talked about for a possible Commanders head coach. What you think about that, AJ?
I mean, from an ex, I don't know. I don't know him personally. I know how he is as a coach, just because like one of my clients played under him at Michigan. Couple other friends played under him at Michigan. They say he's a solid guy, but I don't know who he is as a personality, like hands on. Um, I think for me, any head coach and hire for any team or any sport, it really boils down to also being a leader and being able to cultivate a culture and building out the right staff. So for me, it's not always X's and O's, because I think if we just base it on that, a lot of people should have been head coaches. A lot of people should have been given those opportunities. And as we see around the league, that doesn't always make for the best um, head coaching tenureships within the NFL in particular. But I mean, I think he'll definitely get an interview when you put in the factor that Washington's ownership got to spend time around that culture during the training camp process with the joint practices in Baltimore. You got the analytical guy, Eugene Sheen, that has familiarity with Mike McDonald. They're right down the street, come from a great organization. He's young. I think he definitely gets an interview. I think the process for hiring a head coach will be a lot of interviews. I think a lot of guys are gonna get to come to Ashburn and sit down with the ownership group, and even go through virtual processes with the ownership and whoever they hire as GM.
I want to back what you said though. Like you made a really good point. What's going on, Monty? Appreciate you checking in as always. I don't know if it was a home game today. I also don't know if that even matters. Like, hey, flooded. Come on, Niners fan, do what you gotta do, bro. Y'all having a good season. Maybe y'all make it to the Super Bowl. Who cares? I don't know. But to your point, AJ, I think what you said about just generally like how a head coach should look like. I think that's ultimately like a great example of that is looking in Baltimore, like Harbaugh. You look at other places like Arians, Bruce Arians, and those are the main two off the top of my head. I'm a little bit outdated, so I mean I guess we can all. I mean Andy Reid obviously, but like that's kind of like a goat. He a goat. But you can look at how leaders from a head coach position. Obviously, you got to be good at what you do, but like trying to and even Mike McDaniels, even though I can't wait to watch Hard Knocks. I'm a binge it. So to that extent, I know AJ, you've been watching it throughout the season. But from what I understand, Mike McDaniels has several moments where he shows leadership and shows what leadership from an actual head coaching position looks like. You correct me if I'm wrong, but to that point, like I think there's so many different ways that you can be a head coach and how you can be effective. But I think if you can't have that balance, from understanding like what to do from an end game standpoint, schematic standpoint, as well as being able to communicate effectively and like understand who your players and who your team is, then you cannot be severely deficient on either side. And that's kind of some of the things that we've been able to see. And also, I should have acknowledged it's not just about the players too. Like you got to be able to lead your staff. Like you got to know how to handle these guys too and communicate with not handle, but communicate with the guys and understand like the give and take in terms of what they want versus what's better or what do you think is best or however that stuff looks like in between or in those meeting rooms, in those conversations, those detailed conversations, right? But to that point, and the reason why I want to kind of add to it is because like you don't know what candidates that'll bring about when everything becomes official in a week from now or a little bit over a week from now, 8 days from now. Like, we don't know who's that's going to bring in. We don't know who all of it is going to bring in. We don't know what the GM, the official GM, will look like. We have ideas, and the same thing for the head coach. Like, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I think that's the most exciting part, fellas, is like when you look at Washington's current situation, you really have one of the best opportunities in a long time to get that structure that Washington needs, and you gotta find out, or you gotta wonder like what Josh Harris's vision looks like. While you can take a good guess at it, but you gotta, I can't wait to see what that looks like, because that's probably the most exciting part, is starting fresh, but also having the opportunity to do things the right way. Like, it's if they mess this part up, that's gonna be frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely gotta get the GM and the head coach and hires correct. Straight out the gate. Fortunately for Josh Harris and company, in comparison to other people that might become owners of a sports franchise, they've done this with other organizations, so they kind of know what it looks like and what the process looks like. So, of course, it's a different sport, but that's why I expect it to be a bit more tedious, because you are managing a bigger amount of people. So yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, Mike McDonald did a good job, but for me, it boils down to bigger than just X's and O's. It's about the leadership stuff, and you said that you haven't watched any of the in season Hard Knock, but it's like for McDaniel's, what you can see that is illustrated within the Hard Knocks is some people dream to be NFL players. Some people dream to be lawyers, doctors, um, a whole bunch of different things, right? For Mike McDaniels, he literally dreamed of the day of being a head coach. So you see that within his personality and how he goes about his work and how he goes about building out a staff, how he talks to the player, how he engages, how he goes through the weekly process. That's the one thing that I picked up from the inside of that. Like, his ultimate dream as a little kid has always been to be a head coach. You don't really find too many kids that aspire to be head coaches of any sport. But for him, this has always been his dream, and almost got altered, being addicted to alcohol, substance abuse in that regard. But he still found his way. He also made a lot of relationships along the way, whether it be Denver, um, Washington, Houston, San Francisco. All those things have put him in position to where he's at right now. Crossing paths with the Shanahans, being a ball boy, all those things. I mean, you'll dive into it deeper, but some people look at Mike McDaniels and be like, "Who is this quirky biracial guy?" You feel me? But his whole life, he's been preparing for this moment. Like, he's been preparing to be a head coach at what, 36 years old? Like, he was even ready sooner than that in his mind. So yeah, I think that's where the interview process will get a bit interesting. A lot of people I know in the fan base like Ben Johnson. I'm not impressed. I'm cool off that. If it were my decision. But overall, I think Mike McDonald and even a couple other guys within the Ravens organization, you could definitely look to interview them. I mean, you look at John Harbaugh in Baltimore, man. Like, he's a special teams coach. He ain't no X's and O's. He ain't out there dialing up offensive plays or defensive plays, but he's built a hell of a culture there, and everyone on both sides of the ball get along with each other, and they have one common goal, and that's to get a damn Super Bowl.
And for me, man, I don't really like, people keep asking me, who are my preferences for head coaches. And I don't really have a preference, to be honest. I haven't really looked through the list of guys that are available like I have in years past, because for me, I can't even kind of grasp. I know I asked you, AJ, what you feel about McDonald from Baltimore, but I was just wanting to see your opinion on it. But I can't really get excited or name these guys until I know what we're doing at the GM spot. And I'm actually I'm very excited about that, because like I said, this is the first time, at least in my adulthood, that someone not named Dan Snyder will be choosing the makeup of this front office. And that's important too, because Josh Harris, he's coming in, he doesn't really, I don't know how many relationships he has, with a lot of guys, but you got to imagine as a first-time owner, I mean, he's had a minority stake in the Steelers, but you got to think he wasn't too involved in the relationships building, whatever. But this is his first time really building relationships in this league as an owner in the NFL. So now he's going to go out there. I don't know if him and Eugene Shin are going to be conducting the interviews, if he's going to kind of hire a consulting service to kind of help him with the process. But to me, it's exciting because I feel like it's going to be real due diligence done this time, and it's not going to be a lazy search. Like, I highly doubt this process is going to be done lazily. In fact, I think the process has already started, probably a while ago, as far as compiling names and, guys that they want to target. Obviously, the interview processes can't start until the divisional round of the playoffs. But you got to think, like I said, the process has started with the name gathering. But whoever they get at the GM spot, that's when I'm going to probably start getting a little bit more invested in the coaching thing. But, the most important thing and what I love about this is the GM will be bringing in a guy most likely that's going to be sharing his philosophy and his vision going forward. And that's something I don't think we've seen here in Washington. I mean, I can't, well, at least not since Joe Gibbs 1.0 left, but ever since then, it's just been, a bunch of guys with conflicting agendas and the process was bad. But now you feel like this is the first time you're going to watch the process being done right. Now, I mean, for me, I don't even have a list of GM candidates that I have, preferences for. But my thing is, I would love to see them nab someone from a successful organization, somebody that's been doing it, for years consistently at this level, maybe some assistant GM from a 49ers or the Ravens. I know there's been a lot of talk that, Harris kind of wants to model the franchise after the Ravens. And that's not a bad thing to do at all, especially in this area. If you want to compete with them, you got to think how they think, because we are competing with them at this point for fan base and everything like that. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to do that, then it's no problem going to model that. And that's actually encouraging to me. But I don't have a preference for the name. I just have a preference for getting it done right this time.
Hey, man.